Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave and today I'm going to try and attempt to answer a couple of questions that seem to keep popping up every time we are showing videos of the mini digger in action. And for those that are new to the channel that haven't seen the digger before, this is my mini digger. It's a Chinese made mini digger. It's a United Heavy Industries UHI and the model number is a UME 12. So it's a 1.2 tonne machine and it has the 3-cylinder Yanmar diesel engine. And the question that keeps coming up is, what operating range do I run these machines? Do I run them at the lower revs or do I run them at the higher revs? So the difference there would be, that's idle, and it might be a case of, do we run it at that rev range or do we run it flat out up there? And that also relates to the sensitivity of these controls. I've had people comment that they've tried some of these Chinese mini diggers and the controls are very sensitive, that they're very jerky when they go and try and use the machine, that it's very hard to operate. And that all basically relates back to the hydraulic pump in these machines, and there's only a single pump and the capacity is about 23 or 24 litres a minute, so it's not a lot. And that single pump has to basically power all the different functions on the digger. And some people struggle with the sensitivity of these. This is an older machine, so I've had this for about 18 months and these controls are on this central binnacle column thing here. The new version of this machine actually has the controls mounted either side of the seat. And I've had a couple of viewers comment that they've tried the newer machines and they find that it's a bit overly sensitive in trying to use those controls. So I don't know if it has something to do with how those controls are set up, but all I can do today is sort of demonstrate what I've found in using the controls here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple set of tasks and run the machine at different rev ranges here to see whether it actually affects the jerkiness or the sensitivity of these controls. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this stick part out, fully out, and then have the boom fully out. So I've got all the weight basically at the front of the arm here, and then I'm going to run a series of tests of lowering it and raising it and using the machine at different rev ranges just to see if there's any difference that I can tell that makes the machine smoother to operate. And as I said, there's two distinct schools of thought in this. Some people will look at a video, not just my videos, but other videos of mini diggers and say, you know, you're doing it wrong. What you need to do is run this thing flat out to make it work best. And others that say, no, you need to throttle back a little bit and make it smoother. So let's do some tests and see what actually works. Righto, so we'll do the speed test, and this is now just running at about 1/3 throttle, and it's certainly not struggling very much on the engine, but just let's have a look at what it's registering on the GPS, and it's actually not registering anything. It says we're doing 0, but we're actually moving, so there you go. Let's crank it up to full throttle. Okay, so for this test what I'm going to do is I've got the boom here extended all the way forward and then the stick elevated all the way, so I've got this straight arm out, and I've got a little GoPro up on the other end there looking back this way, and I'm hoping what that might do, it will sort of give an idea if there's any wobble in the arm as it comes up. And I'm going to try and do this over a couple of different rev ranges. So at the minute the digger is just idling, and I'm going to bring it up to about 30%, something like that. And now I'm going to see how smooth I can lift this up. So the first thing I'm going to do is lift up on the right control here, which is the boom. So I'm just going to bring that up slowly. And that comes up quite smooth. Till it stops. I'll bring the stick in. Hopefully you can see that working all right, and that seems to be quite smooth as well. So I'll go stick out again till it stops. Just there somewhere, and now I'm going to drop the boom down again, just with light pressure on this control. See how smooth this is. So I reckon that's pretty good. I don't think you could get any smoother than that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over and come up to full revs. So that's right on the limit of the throttle. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I can feel that the whole machine is starting to vibrate a little bit. So let's come up on the boom first. That comes up quite smoothly. That's not too bad. Bring the stick in. That's quite smooth as well. Let's go the reverse direction, so stick out. And then we'll go boom down. Okay, so it seemed to jump around a lot more than at the lower throttle. I'll just try that again. So coming up seems to be okay. Seems to come up all right, but it doesn't like to go down. I'll just try that again. Just a light bit of pressure. Okay, what I'm going to try and do now is just do a simple operation of what we would normally do. So stick out and then try and come back in nice and smooth. Bit hard to pick up grass, but anyway, just try that again, see how smooth we can get it. So boom and stick all the way out. So all that can be done quite smooth, and this is again at about 30%. You can hear that the machine's just idling along. Let's go to full revs. Try it again. Lots of vibrations from something. I don't know whether it's the engine mounts or something. It's harder to get the boom down. I mean, it works okay when you're bringing the stick and the boom in, but when you then go the other way and you have to sort of, say you're emptying into a trailer or a truck, it's a bit jerky on that end. I'll just try the smooth one again. So I've just dropped the idle back down to about 30%. So nice and smooth coming in, the swing's nice and smooth, and then I can still extend back out with the boom in the stick at the same time, and I can tip. So that seems a little bit easier at the lower revs. Now on this machine, on the bottom down here is my foot control to run the auger drive, and on the one over here is the one to do the swing boom on the front. And ever since I've had this machine, I've noticed that it's really sensitive in one direction, and I've got my big mining boots on at the minute, so I haven't got a lot of sort of feel, but you'll see when I adjust this. So this is just let's just come up to about 30% again. And if I push down, let's just have a look at how smooth this boom is going to actually swing. See, that's pretty abrupt, and I can go back the other way and it seems to be smooth, and I don't understand exactly why. But if I go the other way again, it seems to go quicker and it's a bit more jerky. I think it may be because if you don't use this function for a while, I don't know whether it gets air in the ram or something, but always the first time you go to use it, you get this really abrupt thing. But now I've used it a couple of times, you can see that it's actually gone quite smooth. Let's go do an experiment and go higher revs. See what happens with it. That seems to be okay going that way. Back the other way. Yep. Really, so in that example, it didn't seem to make any difference whether I was at high revs or low revs. All right, what else can we try? Let's just try how smooth it is to swing around. So that's just at idle. Let's try it at about 30%. Let's try it at full throttle. I can tell that more throttle is giving it more speed, so it actually swings around a bit more. But it's still smooth on both. Back to 30% throttle. Actually, I think the speed is probably about the same. I mean, you can go slower just by putting a little bit of pressure on the stick if you need to. And if you go fast, put a little bit of pressure on it. Oh yeah, it's still quite sensitive, probably not quite as much, but that's pretty good. So I'd say in that test really that there's no difference at all. And when you're actually moving the digger, or you're traveling from site to site, or moving it from a trailer to where you're going to do some work, this is where these little diggers really slow down. So they have two drive motors on each track, but because of the single pump, it's splitting the output of the pump to the two motors, so they really don't move very fast at all. And at probably say 20 or 30% throttle, I'm lucky if I'm doing about 1 kilometre an hour. If I come full throttle, then yes, they go a little bit quicker, and it probably jumps up to something like 1.9 kilometres an hour. So what I tend to do is, when I'm moving around or coming out from the shed to the work site, I usually run it at pretty well full throttle so I can get the maximum amount of speed. But as you can probably hear in my voice, the whole thing is sort of shaking around quite badly. Well, that was quite an interesting exercise to have a look at what difference there would be with operating the machine at the different rev ranges. And I can honestly say that probably for most of the functions that you're going to be using on the digger, it didn't seem to really matter whether you run the machine at lower revs or higher revs. There was one probably particular area that I think there was a difference, and that's when I was showing the vision of the stick and the arm fully extended, and we were going through lifting it very slowly up and down. And I did notice in that particular test that running at the lower revs seemed to make the whole operation a lot smoother in being able to do that particular function quite easily. When we ran the machine at maximum throttle or fully wide open, the whole machine starts to vibrate anyway, and then it becomes very sensitive on the stick, where you have to be very particular about the pressure you hold on the stick. If you slightly alter the pressure a little bit, then what we got was the arm sort of stopping and starting and stopping and starting, and you could see that that was quite jerky on the video. For the other function of sort of swinging the body around, then between the two different rev ranges, I didn't see a lot of difference. I did see a little bit on the actual swing boom when we were adjusting the swing boom, that the lower revs seemed to make it a little bit easier to move the boom around the arc than using it at higher revs. Certainly where it really jumps out is when you're moving the digger. So if you've unloaded from a trailer and you're going to the work site, really these things are super slow on the travel motors. Because there is a single pump, it's only putting out about 24 litres a minute. It's splitting that volume into the two travel motors on each track, so the whole machine really slows down quite a lot. If you're running at low revs, then on the GPS I think I recorded something like 0.8 or 0.9 of 1 kilometre an hour, which is dead slow. I mean, you can walk, even me with my bad knee can walk at about 4 kilometres an hour. If you run the machine at higher revs, then the maximum travel speed on this machine is about 1.9 kilometres an hour. It's certainly slower than walking pace, but it's still better than running it at lower revs. So certainly I would use the machine at higher revs when I'm trying to get somewhere on it. Generally, if you look back at the videos that I've done with this machine, you'll probably notice that I tend to use it at the lower revs. And that's really only because the material that I'm using or moving is quite soft material, so it can be compost, it could be light soil, and I have time on my side. I'm not worried about doing it quickly, so I tend to run the machine at lower revs. I guess I'm a bit old school, where I think that if you don't need to run the engine flat out, why run the engine flat out? However, there are times when you're going to need that extra power, if you like, by running at full revs. And that could be if you're digging in very hard ground. So if you're in rocky ground, or if you're in an area that's got a lot of clay and the bucket's sticking, then certainly running at a higher revs will help that. If you have the tine on the front and you're trying to, say, rip out a tree root or something like that, certainly running at higher revs will help you do that. But overall, it's been sort of an interesting experiment to work out what's better. And realistically, at the end of the day, it just comes down to the operator and the machine, what you get used to using. And over a period of time, you get to understand how sensitive the controls are and what sort of works best for you in doing what you want to do. So I'm not really here to say that this is what you should be doing, but you will yourself understand the best way of working when you're using the machine. And I guess many machines will be different. So these Chinese mini diggers might be quite sensitive. If you get into a more expensive machine, then I understand that the controls are probably a lot smoother. They have more pumps that operate more functions, so you know, understandably you pay more, you get a better machine. Anyway, I think that'll do for this video. It's been a great exercise to do. I appreciate everybody watching and supporting the channel. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.